Today's episode of Making a Case: Why Women Don't Hold Other Women Accountable. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this one. Hey, what up, YouTube? It's your boy, Dr. Jacob Isom. Episode 2: Why Don't Women Hold Other Women Accountable? Hey, before I get into my opening statement, for those who don't know me, Dr. Jacob Isom, author, speaker, educator. Been in the YouTube space for a little bit, but we just not getting consistent. Make sure we drop consistent videos for you. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. If you haven't checked out the first episode, make sure you check out the first episode, all right? Hit that bell so you know when the new videos drop. Before we get into my opening statement, let me go over my channel norms. We don't do ad hominem attacks. We attack the point, not the person. So you won't hear me throw anybody under the bus unless I'm saying something positive about somebody. That's the only way you'll hear me mention somebody's name. And the second thing is we try to keep it clean. PG-13, I might toe the line a little bit, but we want to make sure that you can let your kids watch it. This is a family channel, okay? So without further ado, let's get into my opening statement. Why don't I feel like women hold other women accountable? Well, I feel like women don't hold other women accountable because it's kind of the norm to uplift women and not put them down. We hear it all the time, right? Uplift women so that we can make sure our relationship's strong, that our family's strong. I believe that women get preferential treatment. Women definitely get a childlike treatment. I often hear a lot of times in the YouTube space how women are like children, right? Now, I would not go that far, but I kind of get what they're saying. What I would say is women get childlike treatment. We know that when children make a mistake, well, a lot of time we'll chalk that up to immaturity. They just need to grow up, things of that nature, right? On the flip side, a lot of times when women make a mistake, we chalk it up to, well, they're emotional creatures or they're a weaker vessel. So we don't put the same type of stigma or the same type of accountability on women that we do men. We know men are always held accountable, even for things that they're not even responsible for. A lot of time, men to just take the blame. How many times in a relationship, fella, you took the blame for something that you didn't do or you felt like was not your fault, but you sucked it up and you took the blame anyway, just for things to move on. Okay, so a lot of time, women get that special treatment, that childlike treatment, because we want to make sure they're happy, right? So on a larger scale, in mass, women don't hold other women accountable. Now, do we have women out here in the YouTube space or in public that hold other women accountable? Yes, we do, but it's a small minority. We speak to the general and the majority. The exception does not prove the rule. So I don't feel like in mass, women hold other women accountable, because if they did, we will see it more. We'll see it more on social media. We'll see it more in public. Okay. So my case is that women don't hold other women accountable. I have 3 pieces of evidence once again to prove my case. All right. Without further ado, get into piece of evidence number 1. So let's get into evidence number 1. Why don't I feel like women hold other women accountable? They're trying to protect the sisterhood. Now, quite naturally, if I talk about sisterhood, you think about brotherhood, right? So oftentimes we think about brotherhood is bros before hoes. Excuse my language, right? So men making sure that they're protecting other men. Now, although that's true, there's still a cap on when it comes to protecting other men. All right. So if we feel like that you're just all the way wrong, we will turn you in, so to speak. Right. It's not snitching. It's just that holding you accountable and when it comes to our morals and our standard as human beings, as men. All right. So when we talk about a sisterhood, a lot of time that sisterhood is just making sure that women are uplifted, making sure that women feel safe, that there's a bond, that there's a unity, there's a connection. All right. So, but a lot of times that goes against the very things that we need to make sure that we're doing because we definitely see it when it comes to men, right? We definitely make sure that we hold men accountable and other men make sure that happen. So we need to make sure that women are holding other women accountable. All right. So I have two articles. Well, one is a blog and one is an article that I want to share with you to make my case on why I feel like women don't hold other women accountable. They're protecting the sisterhood. Let's get into the first one, which the first one is a blog that I want to show you. It's called Purpose Filled Mommy with me, Minnie Marie. I always want to make sure I shout out the creator of the article, the blog, the video, what have you, so you can go check it out if you like. And of course, to give that person their credit, they're just due. So this is a blog, and I just want to read a little bit to you, kind of what she's saying about the sisterhood. All right. So the title of it is Finding Safety Amongst Women in Sisterhood. So let me read just a little bit to you. There's an indescribable assembly of accord when women are able to genuinely connect for the greater good and support amongst one another. There are unfortunately many women who have never found the safety in women friendships, along with other female relationships and experiencing heartache or what could be best described as disappointment in choosing to keep their distance and not wanting to entertain many women in company. There's a tremendous empowerment amidst women that occurs within our spirit families and our communities when we come together in a united bond of solidarity. The enemy is against unity, being sure that he acts within our own inner demons and keeping us apart. Now, I want you to catch that last sentence when it mentioned he and evil spirits. Okay. Now, is she saying that the enemy is the man and he's related to the devil or demon? Now, I could be totally wrong, but maybe I'm looking too much into it. Okay. Please, you tell me. Let me read on just a little bit more. It's commentary that many women think that the less women we have in our life, that it's protection from being involved in much drama. This mentality is not always true, along with being sexist with the belief that only women cause and stir up drama. I can attest that it's far from the truth, and the belief that only women carry drama is biased. Friendship that center on drama are more about a character than gender. Women were divinely created by God and being sensitive, emotional, and endearing, which prepares our nurturing instinct. I have heard in casual conversation, ironically, by other women, that it's best to have the least number of female friends for protection. The truth is, we are to be wise and discernment about every relationship in our life, not just our friendship with women. Many of us might have been burned once or twice in some scenario by someone we would dare not call a sister in womanhood. I am a witness in being deeply hurt myself and experiencing some situation among female companionship, but not all women are out to get us in some catty form of attack. I have a plethora of amazing women who had my back in being ride or die in my life. One great example in the Bible of women's sisterhood that we can study is that of Ruth and Naomi. Now, I want you to notice that she's making a case for why women need to bond together and create a sisterhood. Basically, essentially saying that, well, some women gonna have to be left out, but don't make that deter you from joining hands with other women and protecting the sisterhood. Of course, she relates it to the story in the Bible, okay? Which it seems as if she's definitely religious based. This may be a religious based blog, but you could definitely see she's pulling for women, okay? I don't want to call her feminist, but it's leaning that direction. But nowhere in this blog is did she hold the behavior of women accountable. She mentioned that yes, women are catty and yes, women may do some things, but never did she hold women accountable for their behavior. And that's just the thing. In order to hold somebody accountable, you have to hold their behavior accountable. Okay. But we don't see that on a large scale, whether it's in writing, blogs. spoken, what have you. Okay. Now, that's just the first piece of my evidence one. I want to go to the second piece, which is an article that I want to show you right now. So, this next article really speaks to what I've talking about when it comes to why don't women hold other women accountable. They're trying to protect the sisterhood. And you're going to see what I'm saying as soon as I read this title to you. Well, you can see it for yourself, but I just want to read a little bit because it sums up perfectly of what I mean when women are trying to protect the sisterhood. Okay. So let's just get straight into it, right? So the title of this article is Sisterhood is just as valuable as the Brotherhood Code. I mentioned that in the last video, right? About women want to kind of battle or compete with the brotherhood, even though when it comes to men, we're not competing, right? Men compete with other men. We don't think to compete with women. Okay. Now, does it have something to do with the fact that we're bigger, stronger, and faster? Yes, absolutely it does. Okay. So we only compete with our equals. And I'm not saying that women aren't human or whatever you want to call it, but we have to call a spade, right? But I digress. Let's get into the article. I want to read just a little bit to you. Oh, men should know that women would hold them accountable and that they must hold one another accountable to be our allies. Now, does it mention anything about women holding other women accountable? Oh my gosh. Let's keep reading. The patriarchal conditioning of girls begin early in adolescence. When some boys mistreat girls, they expect that their friends will look the other way so that they aren't held accountable. In some cases, patriarchy thinks that women must also abide by this unspoken brotherhood code as if to suggest that brotherhood is somehow more valuable than our sisterhood. It's a competition. All right. I mentioned a gender war, right? That I didn't used to believe in it. It's hard not to because women are really think that men are out here trying to compete against them. I've had this in a previous relationship where I felt like a woman that I was with was competing with me. As I continue to gain more success and accomplish goals, it's almost like she wasn't happy for me. It was weird. It's strange. All right, let's keep reading. When such boys grow up to be men who engage in bad behavior like cheating on their spouses, they expect other men to keep their skeleton in the closet for them. In addition, some men expect that women would also comply. These men believe in this so strongly that it never occurred to them that they shouldn't confide in women who may uphold the sisterhood code. Men must come to accept that women will hold them accountable and that they must also hold one another accountable to be our allies. Nothing in this speaks to women holding women accountable. Once again, this is just more proof to show you that women will always hold men feet to the fire, but they'll never hold other women feet to the fire. It just won't happen because they're trying to do what? They're trying to protect the sisterhood. So she mentioned that, oh, by the way, this is from an actual article from a brand called The Medium, if you want to check it out. But nothing in this states that women hold other women accountable. Once again, it's just all on men. Men cheat, so they got to uphold the brotherhood by not saying anything. But what about the transgression that women hold? It would be hard to hold women accountable if there's nothing in the public sphere, if in mass we're not talking about the wrongs that women do. We can't hold them accountable. If women aren't willing to do it, we can't. Because when it comes from a man, just like this video right here, ain't no telling what comments I'm gonna get. So when it comes to the man, it's not looked at like the same. We need women to speak up, more women to speak up. All right. Let's get into evidence number 2.
They feel more oppressed despite the fact that they didn't go through the hard times that older women supposedly went through.
Because of social media.
Because young people today expect everything in their without working for it.
As we've seen times change, we've come to realize that we need to be treated equally. With the creation of social media, there's come with a lot of like unrealistic standards for women, like along with beauty standards, as well with like behavioral standards. Like there's a lot of pressure on women to act a certain way and look a certain way in media. There's the same thing with men where it's like six packs on billboards, but you see a lot more women plastered on these billboards with these like beauty standards and like behavioral standards, especially depicted in movies.
Why do you think that young women today feel more oppressed despite the fact that they...
Now, evidence number 2 of why women find it very hard to hold other women accountable. A lot of women feel like they're oppressed. Now, I shouldn't have to say it. Not all women feel this way, but a lot of women do feel this way. Okay. Now, these specific women in this video did not say that they was oppressed themselves. They were just kind of giving reasons why women may feel oppressed. We know social media is a huge factor, and women kind of believe in the rhetoric, the stories that they hear from the women in their family, friends, etc. Right? So you get a sense and a feeling that this is widespread and this been going on in modern times. When you ask most women, do they feel oppressed? They would tell you, well, no, right? So, but they're still listening to the talking points from women who were 50, 75 years ago. The same talking points these women were speaking. Nowadays, these women are reiterating the same talking point. So, as you can see, at this point, it's just social programming, right? But I wanted to show you this video so it could talk about that. Well, women still feel like they're oppressed. Okay. Now, is a lot of it just regurgitation? Yes. But at the same time, that mindset is out there. Okay. Let's move on to evidence 3. So my evidence number 3, it has 2 parts. Once again, and why I believe that women don't want to hold other women accountable is what I call the modern woman syndrome. Now, if you hear that anywhere else, they biting me because I literally came up with it. Okay. So let me tell you what I mean by the modern woman syndrome. Since and nowadays, right, since girls are young, they're being told to get your bag, don't focus on men, worry about your career. Okay. Now, that is having devastating effects on our culture and our society. And I'll show you that here in a little bit with my 2 parts to my evidence number 3. But the modern woman syndrome is simply that we have shifted from traditionalism. A very small minority of women are traditional who believe in cooking and cleaning, being subservient, submissive to a man. They don't believe that's a negative, right? And believe that if they do work, it's either part-time or they're working for their husband business or something of that nature. Most women are taking the modern route. They believe in this whole ideology that's being pushed in them, that I believe is being pushed in them by businesses, being pushed in them by mass media, right? Because women in the workforce is a good thing. The more people are working, the more taxes, etc. The more women you have as consumers. Okay. So that's a good thing in a sense for society, but it has its effects as well. So the modern woman syndrome is quite simply women focusing on working and worried about having babies and worried about pleasing a man afterwards. Okay. This has been pushed on women. We see that constant time on social media and things of that nature, right? So my first article that I want to read to you, it's actually called U.S. Fertility Rate Drop to lowest in a century as birth dipped in 2023 is by CNN Health. So let me read this to you. Scroll on down. The fertility rate in the United States has been trending down for decades, and a new report shows that another drop in birth in 2023 brought the rate down to the lowest it's been more than a century. There were about 3.6 million babies born in 2023 and 54.4 live births for every 1,000 female ages 15 to 44, according to provisional data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control Prevention's National Center for Health Statistics. After a steep plunge in the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic, the fertility rate has fluctuated. But the 3% drop between 2022 and 2023 brought the rate just below the previous low from 2020, which was 56 births for every 1,000 women of reproductive age. Quote, "We've certainly had larger declines in the past, but decline fits the general pattern," said Dr. Brady Hamilton, a statistician with the National Center for Health Statistics and lead author of the new report. The birth rate fell among most age groups between 2022 and 2023, the new report shows. The teen birth rate reached another record low of 13.2 births per 1,000 female aged 15 to 19, which is 79% lower than it was at the most recent peak from 1991. However, the rate of decline was slower than it's been for the past decade and a half. Now, decline in teenage pregnancy is not a bad thing, okay? I just wanted to point that out. Quote, "The highest rates have over time have been shifting towards women in their 30s, whereas before it used to be with women in their 20s, Hamilton said. One factor, of course, is the option to wait. We had a pandemic or there's an economic downturn. Let's say women in their 20s can postpone having a birth until things improve and they feel more comfortable. For older women, the option of waiting is not as viable. Now, what this article did not mention is the reason why women are waiting is because career, work, okay? Getting to the bag, as they say, right? Now, yes, is the economics a factor, but it's not as big as factor is women want to wait to have babies so they can focus on their career. That's an even bigger factor than the economics because, of course, when you have a baby, you have to be out a certain amount of time once that baby is delivered, okay? And depending on the pregnancy, you might need to be out the last trimester. Meanwhile, birth continued to shift to older mothers. Older age groups saw smaller decreases in birth rates, and the birth rate was highest among women's ages 30 to 34, with about 95 births for every 1,000 women in this age group in 2023. Women 40 and older were the only group to see an increase in birth rate, although at less than 13 births for every 1,000 women. It remained lower than any other age group. Now, I want you to see that women now are choosing to wait to have babies in their 30s and 40s. We know that at age 35 and up is geriatric pregnancy. So women are willing to risk either having a miscarriage or having their kid having autism or some other genetic defect in order to make sure they focus on their career. Okay. Now, is there a correlation? Well, you tell me. I want to show you something next. All right. Let's move on to the next piece of evidence that I have. So my final piece of evidence 3, why I believe women don't hold other women accountable, the modern woman syndrome, is related to work, career, right? We know it's pushed heavy on women. Now, are women doing phenomenal things in the workforce? Absolutely. Now, I'm going to show you the stats when it comes to women in the workforce. And it'll make a lot of sense to you once I show you these stats. So these stats come from, hold on, let me get the actual, so U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's where these come from. 12 stats about working women. So let's scroll on down. Now it said women at work, percent of the women representing selected occupation. These just random occupations they selected. Why they selected these, I have no idea. Speech pathologists, 98%, 93 dental assistants, 82 social workers, physical therapists, 69%. But then when we scroll down a little bit, we got 1% HVAC and refrigeration, 11% civil engineers, 36% lawyers, right? So we see a dip, all right? Let's keep on scrolling. Women are integral to today's workforce. There are 74.6 million women in the civilian labor force. Almost 47% of U.S. workers are women. So we're talking about almost half the population women. More than 39% of women work in occupations where women make up at least 3/4 of the workforce. Women own close to 10 million businesses, accounting for 1.4 trillion in receipts. Now, I do want to say that a lot of those businesses are sole proprietors. Now, that's not taken away from women, but a lot of those businesses are women who don't have any employees. Okay. If you would like for me to show you those stats, I will do so. Okay. Female veterans tend to continue their service in the labor force. About 3 out of 10 serve their country as government workers. Now, here's some more women in management occupations. Human resources, 74%. Social and community service, 71%. But then when we look at construction managers, 7%. Computer information system, 26%. 27% chief executives. Okay. So we see another little dip when it comes to non-typical careers that women would have when it comes to either managerial position or when it comes to hard labor. Let's continue reading a little bit more. 70% of mothers with children under 18 participate in the labor force, with over 75% employed full-time. Look at that stat. Look how many mothers are in the workforce. Now, is that because now in modern times, we quote unquote need 2 incomes? Even though I would suggest that it's not that we necessarily need 2 incomes, it's more so that we need 2 incomes in order to create this lavish lifestyle that we've been sold. Okay. The cars, the houses, the jewelry, the fancy vacations, etc., etc. Okay. So it's really keeping up with the Joneses and the lifestyles that why we need 2 incomes. Now, I'm not saying that 1 income household would be hard because we know that the average person makes $50,000 or less a year. So I'm not saying it won't be difficult, but what I'm saying is whoever that sole provider would definitely have to make sure to make ends meet. But don't let me digress. Mothers are the primary or sole earners for 40% of households with children under 18 compared with 11% in 1960. So we're talking about single parent household because we know that women mostly are single parents when it comes versus dads, right? Let me read a little bit more stats to you. Women participating in U.S. labor force has climbed since World War II from 32% in 1948 to 56.8% in 2016. That is a major increase. I wonder what's the difference between 1948 to 2016. Let's see. Social media, the second wave feminist movement, sexual revolution, and the list goes on. Okay. The proportion of women with college degrees in the labor force almost quadrupled since 1970. More than 40% of women in the labor force had college degrees. The range of occupation women workers hold also expanded, with women making notable gain professional managerial occupation. Despite these gains, women are still underrepresented in STEM occupations, with women's share of computer workers actually declining. Now, let me stop right there. So what we see is that there's definitely been an increase with women in the workforce, whether they have kids or they don't. Now, this is, like I said, mainly due to the modern woman syndrome because women have definitely been pushed into the workforce. Okay. So with feminism and other things, the focus on consumerism, capitalism, right? Getting to the bag, making money, the fear of divorce, right? The fear of being with a man and being left with nothing. That also creates a lot of women to focus on having a career versus having a relationship, which I believe is the fall to the traditional household, the fall of monogamous relationship. We touched on that in the last video. What you'll start to see is a lot of these episodes and these videos at the interconnect, right? So what we're seeing is, let me get into my closing statement. So what we really seeing is we're seeing that the reason why have a hard time holding other women accountable because they're focusing on becoming them, they're focusing on working, they're focusing on what they consider their purpose. They're also want to protect the sisterhood. So that's the reason why a lot of times women will say, well, we're have more college degrees than men. We opening business. We doing this and that. It all connects, right? Modern women syndrome, protecting the sisterhood, right? It all connects. And it doesn't connect with women saying they're impressed, though. That's the thing that doesn't connect. But it's all a ploy to make sure women don't hold other women accountable. Okay. You won't see it in mass. You just won't see it. So, with that being said, I hope that you enjoyed the second episode. Please do not be afraid to leave your comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Make sure that you go purchase the merchandise, okay? We got all kind of shirts on there for you to pick up. Make sure you go cop both of the books, okay? Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so that you know when new episodes drop. And you are me, love always, love eternal. And we out this thing. Peace.